welcome to Widnes Rugby Chat. It's episode 28. I'm James Gordon. I'm sorry I've been missing for the past few weeks. It's just been a busy time work-wise and also a few hospital appointments with my son. So that's eating into my podcast recording time. It's also increasingly difficult to find the time to arrange to get guests in, but I'll look to resolve that in the coming weeks. We might start doing audio-only podcasts, but we'll see about that. Before we get started, thanks as always to sponsors Musical All Sorts, Arnold Gore's Financial Management, PD Law Solicitors, and Deals the Jewellers. Lots to get through in this episode. I want to talk about a few rumours and murmurings and potential new signing later on as well. Want to have a reflection on the club statement from last week about going part-time. We'll talk a bit about Ep28 Cup and what's going on there. So yeah, let's get cracking with it really. So I just want to look back at the game against Bradford. For those of you who went, it wasn't a pleasant experience, it has to be said. I mean, I'd probably rank it in the top 5 worst performances I've probably ever seen from a Widnes team. It was poor. It was, yeah. There's not really much more you could say about that. I know there's a bit of context around the situation in terms of, you know, the players were told that they were going the club was going part time, but I still think to put up the performance that they did was, you know, a little. I wouldn't go as far as saying unacceptable, but very disappointing. So 62-0. Against anyone in any league is bad enough, but when you're a full-time team in the championship, you shouldn't be getting knocked over by that score by anyone. I just thought Widnes got really sluggish. I thought there was a couple of decisions went against Widnes. It has to be said, but I mean you can't blame the referee for a 62-0 loss. I thought Widnes never really recovered. There was a call early on where the Bradford fullback took a catch, carried it in goal. Widnes pinned him probably 5 metres from his own line. The referee decided it was a 20-metre tap, which was a bizarre decision. Bradford went up and forced a repeat set and then scored, but you know that was just, you know, papering over the cracks a little bit thinking about that decision. But yeah, very disappointing from Widnes. Of course, young team, get that. Get the situation regarding the uncertainty over the future of the club and whatnot, but I still think as professional rugby league players, you know, you'd expect better than that. Bradford, I didn't think Bradford had to break sweat in all honesty. I mean, everything went in their favour in terms of they got all the lucky bounces and stuff like that, but I didn't even think Bradford were that good. I thought they just played. They didn't, you know, I would imagine Bradford are capable of playing better than they did on that occasion. But you know, away from that, at the end of the day, it's one game, it's 2 points that was lost. I mean, Bradford away is a tough game anyway. I think it's just more the manner of the defeat that was concerning. So, Widnes have to get back on the horse this week, so to speak, against Rochdale. Just wanted to have a look a little bit at the running of the team. So, you're effectively looking at 5 teams. I mean, we're not sure what's happening with relegation. There's murmurings that the league's going to expand, so there may not be relegation anyway. As things stand, the bottom 2 go down. Rochdale pretty much done, so they'll be going down. But for the other spot, it's basically 1 from 5, and that includes Widnes. I don't think there's any chance of Widnes being relegated, but stranger things have happened, and Widnes have got a, you know, not the easiest of runs, it has to be said. So we'll just have a quick run through. Glyn on the Widnes forum posted these, so he saved me doing a little bit of research, which was good. So you got Batley have 12 points, Swinton have 12 points, Widnes have 10, Dewsbury have 9, and Barrow have 9 as well. Just looking at this, the key point is that Barrow and Dewsbury both have a game in hand. I'm just trying to figure out who it's against. They do play each other this weekend, so one of them's going to win that one. So important. Well, it could be a draw, I guess, but important for Widnes to pull off a win this week. Widnes is running Rochdale at home this week, then Halifax away, then Toronto at home, Sheffield away, Toulouse at home, Lee away, Swinton at home, and then Dewsbury away last game. And you wouldn't want to go to Dewsbury on the last game of the season needing the result to stay up. Looking at Widnes' run, you got pretty much 3 tough away games: Halifax, Sheffield, and Lee. All teams. Well, Halifax have sort of fallen away a little bit, but certainly Sheffield and Lee are going to be looking to get results to get in the top 5. Tough home games in terms of Toronto and Toulouse, the toughest 2 home games you could get. Obviously, as well as Rochdale and Swinton. You'd like to think that Widnes could knock over Rochdale and Swinton relatively comfortably at home. So you'd hope for 4 points there. And then it's just a case of, can you see Dewsbury or Barrow winning 3 of their last 9 games? So Dewsbury have got Barrow at home, Sheffield away, Halifax at home, Rochdale away, Featherstone at home, Batley away, Bradford at home, Toulouse away, and Widnes at home. You're looking at there, they've got Rochdale in there. Dewsbury at Batley, a derby might go in their favour, but other than that, Barrow. You're looking at Dewsbury's running, and you're sort of looking at 3 wins max. From that, which might of course be all they need, but Featherstone at home for them might be one they target. Halifax at home for them might be one that they target as well. Barrow's running, so they've got 9 points like Dewsbury. They've got Dewsbury away this week, then they've got Lee at home, Swinton away, York at home, Bradford at home, Sheffield away, Toronto away, and Batley at home. Barrow had a really good result against Featherstone, it has to be said, and that will give them confidence for this run in. They'll probably look at Swinton away as one they could win, but in terms of home games, Lee, York, and Bradford at home are all tough. They've got Toronto away, which they may just throw anyway because they'll want to gear up. You'd imagine Barrow will go into that last game at home to Batley needing some sort of result to avoid the bottom 2. Of course, there's potential that Swinton and Batley are going to get dragged into it. I mean, looking at this weekend's fixtures, Batley actually play Swinton at Swinton this weekend, which whoever wins that will probably be safe, I'd say, or certainly nudging towards safety. I mean, you're looking at, effectively, if Widnes win this weekend, you're probably going to be looking at Batley or Swinton will have 14, Batley or Swinton and Widnes will have 12, and then Dewsbury or Barrow will have 11, and then Dewsbury or Barrow will have 9, if that makes sense, because you've got Batley playing Swinton and Dewsbury playing Barrow. Who knows who's going to get sucked in. Batley play York at home, Lee away, Rochdale away, Dewsbury at home, Toulouse away, Featherstone at home, and Barrow away. And then Swinton play Batley at home, of course, Bradford away, Barrow at home, Lee away, Featherstone away, Halifax at home, Widnes away, and Sheffield at home. I'd say, I think Swinton will knock Batley over this week, and I think that'd probably be just about enough for Swinton. They'd probably need another 1 win, and you could see them beating Barrow at home. You could see them maybe beating Halifax at home, and even Sheffield at home. They do probably give a good game as well. So, lots of twists and turns, I'm sure, ahead for the coming weeks. I don't think Widnes have got anything to worry about. I don't think Widnes will be in that bottom 2 at all. I think Widnes will beat Rochdale this week. I think Widnes will probably beat Halifax away, and Swinton at home. You just don't want to. As long as Widnes can get to the point where they go to Dewsbury at last game and there's no pressure on that game, I think they'll be relatively happy with that. The 1895 Cup semi-final is Lee away on the 28th of July, 4 p.m. kick-off. A really tough draw. The hardest draw you possibly could have got. I've never actually been to Wembley for a Challenge Cup final because I was waiting for Widnes to get there. They've only been there once in my lifetime, 93. I was only a nipper then. I was only 4 or 5 years old, so I didn't go to that one, obviously. It would be a bit of a bittersweet moment, it has to be said, if my first Widnes experience at Wembley was an 1895 Cup final, but it looks like the draw gods have decided that it's not going to be the case anyway. So I think it would be very tough for Widnes to beat Lee at Lee and get a place in the Derek Beaumont Cup final, of course. So, but you never know what might happen in a semi-final. Let's just hope it doesn't go as sour as Widnes' last Cup semi-final, which of course was also played at Lee. So time to get into some serious stuff now. So the Widnes board released a statement last week, a fair and open and honest statement, based on basically the club going part-time for next season. Now, this has been speculated over a few weeks. I know several players were communicated this several weeks ago, told that they could speak to other clubs for next season. There's clearly issues at Widnes. There's clearly a lot of problems, and I don't think we don't know. I don't think anybody knows necessarily what's going on. The bottom line is, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. The bottom line is that the club doesn't have enough money. It's spending out more money than it's bringing in. I suppose from those of us from the outside, you'd look at it and think, well, if we're averaging 4,000, you're going part-time, next season you'll have the season ticket money and the sponsorship money. We should be able to put a part-time team together, but that is, of course, assuming that you can get out of contracts that are that go into next season. Clearly, there's issues financially for the club, and it's you've got to sympathise with the club for what's going on. I still think. I think this statement. I called for a statement to be issued, and it was, but I still think that maybe there could be a bit more. Not transparency, because that makes it sound like they're not being transparent, but I still think it'd be nice to know what exactly is needed to sort of smooth over the current problem. So for those of you, you will have seen the statement, it's on the club website, talks about the parachute payment being withheld. So without that, Widnes would have been part-time this season. Of course, the previous custodians took half the parachute payment money roughly. The other half's being withheld by the Super League clubs, which, to be fair, I don't think. As Widnes fans, we'll think that as a terrible move, but I don't think you can blame them necessarily for that. The problem is you effectively got a Widnes club at the moment that is can only really afford to be part-time, but is paying full-time wages. So the academy funding being withheld is a massive issue as well. And the board made the point that they've honoured the players' contracts from earlier in the year. They didn't necessarily have to do that. They could have just cut loose the players potentially and do that. The points deduction means central funding next year will be around 250,000, so that's a significant decrease from this season. I don't think part-time, I'm just seeing if there's anything else worth raising in this statement right now. I don't think part-time is a terrible. I've seen some real negative comments about it. I don't think part-time is a terrible move. I think if you look at some of the teams that Widnes have played this season, you can put a competitive team part-time. But look at York. I don't even think York have got a brilliant team on paper, but they're well coached, they're well drilled, they've got a good little setup there, and they're doing fairly well. Forget Toronto. Toronto is a complete anomaly. That it's a false economy having Toronto in the league. If they go, presuming London get relegated, you'd have a much more balanced league next season of part-time teams. You might have the odd team like Lee, I think, are looking at a hybrid model where they do some training in the daytime, and Bradford's operate on a similar basis, I think. I think that's probably a better model for the top championship clubs to be not fully part-time but not full-time, a bit of a hybrid model where you can have maybe 4 or 5 full-time players who combine playing with community work and whatnot, maybe a few more, and have some training sessions in the day. Of course, if you've got an academy, the academy players are full-time, so you might have a situation where you've got 4 or 5 full-time pros who are training effectively with the academy. That could work. Of course, there's a massive strain on the academy at Widnes at the moment, and there's the big debate of, well, looking at what other clubs do you just write off the academy? I don't think you do that, but it's very difficult to put a sound business case towards keeping one at the moment, because you've had Widnes have obviously invested into having an academy, the time and money and bringing the players through. Rugby league needs clubs to be bringing players through. Widnes sort of not being punished as such, but certainly almost being given a short shrift in terms of, well, even though I think we're up to 22, 23 academy players who've played this season in terms of they being through Widnes' systems. If there was more clubs with a system like Widnes, then Rugby League would probably be in a better place. So it would be a shame to see that go. I don't think it will. I think Widnes will stick to it. It's just how you manage the pathway really, because you want, you'd imagine that if you've got academy players, they're going to want to go to a full-time environment once they've graduated from the academy, if you like, and how you do that. I mean, everyone's saying, oh, are we writing off Super League? Well, no, I don't think going part-time now doesn't mean you have to be part-time forever. Ultimately the club's got to stabilise itself, and there's no reason, as you've seen in previous years, there's no reason why a part-time club couldn't win the championship anyway. There's no, this season, Lee could still win championship, York could still win championship because it goes to the playoffs, and I still think you can put a competitive team together. The contract situation in terms of when players can speak and building your team for next season sort of requires you to come out and, the club need to decide what they're doing next season, because they need to recruit. Basically, they need to tell the players that they've got what's going on, and that's ultimately what's happened. I think there's a few issues. Kieran Pirtle's out of contract at the end of the season. I think the club need to decide, are they going to offer him a new deal? He might not want to stay. He's been through the ringer a little bit under undue pressure this year. He's been getting criticism, which I think is completely unfair. They've got to decide if he's going to be the coach. If not, they've got to find another coach. Recruitment wise, of course, there's players who are on deals for next season, and just because the club's announced that they're going part-time doesn't mean that those deals become null and void. The club would still have legal responsibilities over that, so they've got to try and offload somehow those contracts. So Anthony Gellin's obviously the obvious one. He could dig his heels in and say, well, I've got a contract for next year, I'm stopping, and that obviously puts Widnes in a little bit of an awkward situation. I think there's 9 or 10 players that are on contract, so it'd be interesting to see how that all pans out. Clearly there's a lot of to-ing and fro-ing that'll be going on behind the scenes at the moment. I understand that a handful of players at least are in talks with other clubs about moving on immediately, so that is for the rest of this season. I'm not sure who those players are. I know Harrison Hansen's being linked with Salford, but I can't see that. I think if Hansen's going to leave, it will be to Lee, and I think that will be next season. But clearly the club needs to get players off the wage bill. What happens beyond that, I'm not too sure, because of course it basically feels like the players playing are effectively the only 17 that are fit. I mean, if you look at the team at Bradford, you look at the players that were missing, who were injured. Apart from the 19-man squad, you'd be hard pressed to think of any more players that could possibly play in the first team. So you've got 8-9 games left. Very tough situation at the moment for Widnes, where you're probably looking like you need to move 4 or 5 players on to get them off the wage bill, but then you can't bring any more players in. A blow to that is obviously Gellin's the one. He's taken up a huge amount of money, but he's now got a hamstring injury, I'm led to believe. He was strapped up heavily at the end of the Bradford game. I actually saw an ambulance coming into the ground as I was leaving, and there was murmurs that it was for Gellin, but I don't think it was. He's got a hamstring injury. He'll be out for the next few weeks, I'm told, hoping to be back for the cup semi-final against Lee. But of course, that obviously causes issues in terms of trying to offload Gellin, which Widnes have been trying to do, not because he's a bad player or because he's not good for the club, but just a pure financial decision. The transfer window runs until 9th of August, so Widnes got about a month now to effectively move players on if they can. There'll be clubs at the bottom end of the Super League trying to strengthen to fight relegation. So it'll be interesting to see what movement there. There is some positive news. So Patrick Arvan is training with the club, and I believe he's going to sign on a 4-week unpaid contract or trial. Should be available Sunday against Rochdale, which would be a a big boost. It has to be said. Widnes really been struggling with wingers. You know, Ryan Ince is injured, Owen Buckley's injured, Jaden Hatton's picked up an injury. I don't think Joe Edge is particularly ready to play in the first team, although he's done okay in the two. If you put Arvan on the wing, he certainly adds a little bit of, if nothing else, you know, a bit of experience. But I mean, he's a body at the end of the day, and I think that's where Widnes have been really struggling for numbers. If you can, you know, instead of chucking yet another kid onto the pitch, at least you've got someone there who's a solid professional. I think Arvan's never let Widnes down. I don't think, you know, he's a long-serving player. He was at the club for 7 or 8 years. You know, relatively prolific try scorer. It would be good to have him, and you know, and also if he does play, what a tremendous show of commitment to play for free. Doesn't have to. He's a massive help to the club when you consider the situation that the club finds itself in. And I think if it does transpire that this is what's happening, I think Arvan certainly deserves some sort of definitely a positive reception if he does return. A bit more about funding again. We're still not, again, the situation is a massive hole in the budget in terms of the parachute payment and the academy funding being withheld. I mean, I think if you ignore the parachute payment, there's still, from the academy money that was withheld, a massive hole in the finances. I've seen a few people, would it have been better if Widnes had just liquidated in February and then started again in next season? Maybe. I would never have gone for that option, but you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's still a bit unclear. It's still a bit hazy about what's happening in terms of debts and bits and bobs like that. My understanding is that the new club isn't responsible for the old club's debts, but to open up their supply chain, they're having to pay off some of the old club debts. So if you buy something from a supplier and the old club owes them money, they're not going to deal with you until you've paid that off. And as much as the new club, the current owners, is a new limited company, it's still Widnes Vikings. Widnes Vikings is still, if you ring up and say it's Joe Bloggs from Widnes Vikings, that company is not particularly fussed whether it was the old limited company or the new limited company. They just think, well, Widnes Vikings owed us money. So we're still not 100% sure what the liabilities are in terms of the debt. You know, we don't know how much money the club is having to pay out to cover the debt, but the revelations regarding what the wage bill is, I mean, I would imagine that regardless of what the debts are, I'd imagine that the wage bill for the club's revenue is getting nowhere near what that wage bill is. It's disappointing, of course, that I've seen Luke Backhouse and Marwan Kukas. They obviously had conversations with the old custodians and walked away, and you can sort of see why. They were sort of, their hands were tied or their lips were sealed because of an NDA, and a number of people have got NDAs with the old club, including Kevin Brown over his transfer fee, which is apparently, I've heard on the grapevine, a lot more than what we thought it was. You know, there's all sorts of little things. You know, I think Thomas Coyle had one when he got injured many years ago on the eye pitch. He wasn't allowed to talk about that. There's, you know, surprising number of people kicking around with those. So yeah, I can't be more positive. I just thought, you know, there's plenty to chat about, and hopefully I've given some insight and some of my opinion into those issues. Of course, Rochdale at home this week, 3 PM on Sunday. Obviously, need to get as many fans in the ground as possible, paying the £20 to get in. The next home game, I think, after that is Toronto on the 21st of July. The kickoff time has been moved to 5:05 because it's on Sky. So I don't really understand why Sky have only realised 2 weeks before that they need to have it kicking off later, but that's by the by. I think they've obviously had issues with some of the other games. They've tried to move. 3 of the Toronto games actually aren't being televised now. I think they're all home games because they can't move the kickoff time to suit Sky. It's the way of the world. I don't think moving it to 5 o'clock. I don't think 5:05. It's not a disaster. It'd be nice. It'd be nice summer's evening, hopefully. You know, and not a great deal of expectation, but it'd be fantastic if Widnes could put on a bit of a display at home in front of the Sky cameras, and may of course help the club in a few areas. It might put some players in the shop window. It might of course bring some attention to the current plight of the club and maybe drum up a bit more support. So hopefully we'll see some action in that area very soon. That's all from me. Thanks as always to the sponsors: Musical All Sorts, PD Law Solicitors, Isle Gorse Financial Management, and Deals the Jewellers. Please do like, share, comment if you want me to talk about anything else. If you've got any ideas for guests, if you want to come on as a guest and give me your views and thoughts on what's going on at the club, please do. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.